it was a fun conversation talking college football playoffs and the NFL, and certainly we came on the air talking about the story of the day from The Athletic about how the Jets are being run and how Woody Johnson, according to The Athletic, turned down the trade the Jets had going to acquire Jerry Jeudy because he had a bad Madden rating. I've never heard anything like that before in any sport. And that's the way I'm kicking off my conversation with Sports Illustrated's Chris Mannix with his deep reporting on an NBA team filling out their roster based on the thoughts of Ronnie 2K, right? That's what happens in the NBA?
I tell you what, you peel back the layers of any ownership situation and you do come up with some wacky stories. I think it was about 10 years ago, I wrote about Robert Parra in Memphis. He had just bought the Memphis Grizzlies, a Silicon Valley guy, and he had some wacky ideas for how to run his team. One of them I think I remember was he wanted his head coach at the time to consider, Dave Yeager, to consider wearing an earpiece during games so like either he or someone from the front office could communicate, with him on the sideline. Which
That's not legal, correct? Wouldn't it be legal?
I don't know if it's legal, but in the NBA nowadays, you've got an assistant coach, a bench loaded with assistant coaches. They're probably 10 assistants on the bench. You don't really need to have an earpiece, but I thought that was amusing. It goes to the point, like, I'm sure every organization has an owner that has some wacky suggestions or outside the box thinking.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the current state of the association. Lots being discussed about the ratings for the NBA. Are they alarmed by this, or it's just early season, or they're alarmed because they thought the cup would be something that would spike interest? What do you think here?
The NBA says they're not alarmed by it. I was part of a handful of reporters that talked to Adam Silver on Tuesday in Vegas, and Adam has been beating kind of the same drum, saying, hey, look, yeah, they're down a little bit, but cable TV ratings across the board are down. We just had a polarizing election. We had a major World Series featuring the Los Angeles Dodgers. Like he's pointing to a lot of different touch points there that
for viewing fatigue.
Viewing fatigue that would drive viewership down. I personally believe that there's more to it. I personally believe that the product is getting worse, and I think it's getting worse because the proliferation of the three-point shot is getting out of control. This year, you're going to have the Boston Celtics break the all-time record for most threes per game. The record, I think, is around 45, 46. The D'Antoni Rockets averaged that a couple of times back in the late teens. The Celtics are over 50 now. There's 5 or 6 teams, I think, averaging better than 40 points per game. There's, I think, 2 or 3 teams that could finish the season with more than half their shot attempts per game being three-pointers. I don't think that's good basketball. I don't think that's compelling television. I don't think fans want to go back to the days of the late 80s, early 90s, where the scores are 87, 85 in a competitive game. But I also don't think that they want to sit there, turn their TV on, and witness a three-point contest. So this was something, by the way, when I asked Adam Silver about it, he wouldn't agree with my premise that there's too many threes, but he does agree with the premise that the type of play, the quality of play needs some evolving.
So what would one do about that? Let's just say you are onto something here, and you can't take the three away. You can't actually penalize teams for taking too many of them. So do you move it back? Do you move the three-point line back?
No, mostly because nowadays guys are pulling up from 25
from the
feet,
logo.
Right?
I know. I hear you, but if there are more lower percentage shots being taken, that will absolutely, defray a product. That's for sure. And then you throw on top of it more and more of these shots taken by guys that you don't know of, because the guys you do know of might be out because there's a back-to-back, might be out because they're maintaining an injury that they're coming back from a few months ago or something. There's Luka's out with a heel injury tonight. This is after he hasn't played for 5 days, and he had a triple-double the last time you saw him. Now, hey, everybody, go watch the Mavs because Kyrie's out too. Like that's a problem. I mean, you want the stars on the floor, and they're not on the floor as much, and those who are on the floor are taking more lower percentage shots. Doesn't it all add up? Maybe?
Yeah, well, look, the argument that teams would make is that analytically they're higher percentage, right? Because their numbers suggest if you shoot 40 to 45 threes per game, you're going to finish the game with more points than if you take better, quote, percentage
Yeah, but that's
shot.
Moneyball stuff, man.
Right, but that's how teams are run nowadays. Like that's that. And look, my issue is that this is a trend. It's not an aberration. It's a trend. Whatever the numbers suggest about how they kind of flatlined the last few years, and the NBA would push back and say that's the case. You're seeing 7-footers coming into the league either as 3-point shooters or trying to become 3-point shooters. I'll give you an example. I was at a Grizzlies game early in the season, and I was watching Zach Edey warm up. He's warming up behind the 3-point line. Zach Edey, who was a paint player in college basketball, one of the best college basketball players during his time, jacking up threes because he gets it. His team wants him to be a corner 3-point shooter. They want spacing, all those things that you hear about all the time. So it's going to continue to trend in that direction. Now, you asked what you can do about it. Moving the 3-point line is that's not going to work. It's not going to change anything. I think there are things that the NBA can do within its current rules, right? Like you can allow more physicality on the perimeter. You can bring back some hand checking. I saw Rick Pitino suggesting something similar on social media this week. I also think that you can enforce some rules on the outside. Like how many times do we see a guy take what's probably an illegal step back, right? Like you're dribbling, you're inside the 3-point line. All of a sudden you take this giant step back that could be construed as a travel. You can start enforcing some of the current rules to try to bring some of those numbers down. You could also try a radical approach. Like one thing I've suggested to other coaches, been largely laughed at, but like say you cap the number of threes that you can make per game. You can say, hey, you can make as many as 15 threes per game. You're not liking it either. No, I got that same reaction.
Well, yeah, because people in the stands aren't going to be like, well, we're down by 6. It's now a 3-possession game because we're out of 3-pointers.
You're 100%. You're 100% right in the sense that.
So who's keeping track of that in the stands in the fourth quarter?
I agree, and that when I brought this up after the presser to Adam, that was one thing that he brought up. He's like, we don't need to confuse our fans any more than they already are at times. Like already, like the NBA Cup, to bring it full circle there, nobody really understands it, right? Like nobody understands what game. I mean, they know what games count because the courts are different in all these different games.
Yeah,
but
right.
You don't know. Like I just had to vote for the all NBA Cup tournament team or whatever they call it. And like the NBA, to their credit, sent me all the stats because I don't know what the stats were for, the 5 or 6 Cup games that most of these teams play.
You
it's
were
already
locked in on pool play.
I was not. I was not locked in on that. Like Giannis definitely gets a slot. Damian Lillard gets a slot. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets a slot.
Yes.
And the other 2 guys, I don't know. Look,
it's
a complicated question with no clear solution. But I do think the NBA is trending in a bad way. I think the 3-point shot is hurting the league, and I think that some of these lower viewership numbers are a reflection of that. Maybe not all of them, but I do think as many of the young kids that love 40 to 50 threes per game or 60 threes per game, I think there's also a section of people, the grassroots basketball fan, that doesn't love it, and it's getting turned off by some of these games.
Well, how about more star players playing? That's what I don't know how you force that issue. I don't know how you do it. Because I
think that's less an issue now, than it used to be.
Again, perfect example again. This might not have been seen because it was the last game on Monday night. There were 2 NFL games. Nuggets and Kings played a spectacularly fun basketball game. What was the final score? It was like 130, 129 or something like that. Jokic was out there. Murray was out there. Gordon was out there. Porter Jr. was out there. Fox was out there. Sabonis was out there. Monk was out there. The only guy missing, I think, was Keegan Murray. I think he was out.
All the way down to Malik Monk.
But by the way, he was lighting it up. And so, but, star players, people that are really good at basketball actually playing and not being managed and just having, but again, I don't know if these are the same guys, with the stars who then get to the All-Star game and then treat it in a certain way that now they got to come up with some 4-team tournament And I don't know what the answer is on all of this front, but I guess the long story short is New York City's paying attention to it, is what you're saying.
It's two separate discussions, All-Star and availability. I do think they've addressed a lot of the availability issues. Over an 82-game season, you're going to have some stretches where Luka sits out for rest reasons. LeBron, top guys are not going to play all 82. But the elimination or the reduction of back-to-backs, the reduction of 3 games in 4 nights, the spelling out to teams that if you have a national TV game on the schedule, your guy better be in an air cast if he's not out there playing. So they've done some of this, Rich. You're never going to be able to legislate it out completely,
right?
But I do think they've done some of it.
But what I'm getting at isn't just that. It's the competitive spirit of some of these players that does tie into the All-Star game. Back in the day, and I know I sound like that Dana Carvey character, like we loved it back when I was there. In my day, these guys would play defense in the All-Star game, and they wanted to win. Yeah. Like, you didn't have to come up with any gimmicks, you didn't have to come up with any gimmicks in the 80s and the 90s and the aughts. You didn't have to come up with a gimmick when Kobe was in Madison Square Garden. You didn't. You put these guys out there and they want to beat the crap out of each other. They really did. And there was a certain way of the Hall of Fame athlete was just like, I'm not losing to you. I'll see you in Springfield one day when we get our jackets, but today is not the day for you. It's my day. And right now it's just like, oh, let's swap jerseys. Who cares? Honestly, like I really feel that way. And I think that is a sensibility that might lead to a fan go, like, again, just to bring it full circle, our mutual friend Dan Patrick, I think he's right on his head. He said, right on the head. He said, if you don't care, why should I care? And the general sense is, do a lot of these athletes really care to play all 82 and make sure that the person gets to see the product? I don't know. I think
a lot, again, one of the things that the league has done is putting that 65-game threshold in to be eligible for rewards, which affects pocketbooks, which is another step. Like, again, you're never going to get all these guys to play or want to play even 75 games. They'll want to be in that 70, 75 games range, especially when they're anticipating a long playoff run. As far as the All-Star game and the competitiveness there goes, I mean, like the CD player and the flip phone, competitiveness in the All-Star game is not coming back, right? It's gone forever. Like you're never, and like Doc Rivers was talking about this the other day, because Doc actually played in one of those hyper competitive All-Star games you're talking about. Doc was playing in one of them, and he actually coached in the one last year, which was really the straw that broke the camel's back. Like last year was an abomination. Yeah. Like Adam Silver, was kind of embarrassed by that game because he spent weeks talking about everything that he had done to make sure these games were competitive, and it wasn't. It was one of the worst All-Star games of all time.
Yeah, so just to jump in to finish your sentence here, we have a drop of Adam Silver when he handed out, was this the MVP award at the All-Star game?
Well, congratulations.
That was it. We use that all the time.
Yeah. Well,
to
big
back
gulps,
up
huh?
To back up your point. Don't mean to interrupt your flow there, but
no,
that's what he's like. Well, congratulations. Well,
congratulations.
I mean, we use that all the time.
There's the NBA has literally tried everything to juice this All-Star game. Now they're going with a 4-team format, which nobody seems to like among the player ranks. Like Kevin Durant weighed on that earlier. Look, the All-Star game, you can't kill it, but you can't save it, right? It is still a game that draws an astronomical rating by NBA standards. Sure. It's still a really highly rated game, so they're never going to get rid of it. But you're also never going to solve this problem. Like the players, one of the things they push back on is they say, all right, you want us to be competitive on Sunday. How about you take all the crap off our plates, Friday and Saturday? Because the NBA does get them involved with a lot of their corporate sponsorship. They've got a lot of obligations during All-Star weekend. The leagues try to address that by giving them extra time off after the All-Star game. But because the NBA needs these guys to do so much before the game, they're never going to take that off the table. So this is where we are, Rich. We on February, 22nd or whatever the day after the All-Star game is, I guarantee you we'll be sitting right here complaining about how terrible it was because there is no fixing this problem.
Well, and the NBA is not alone in that regard either. Major League Baseball made the All-Star game significant as to who got home field advantage in the World Series. That was a massive flop. They've also homogenized the uniforms, make them look like they're the Savannah Bananas more than the actual All-Stars of the Major League Baseball. By the way, Savannah Bananas are terrific.
And money doesn't work with these guys either, right? Money doesn't work because everyone that makes an All-Star team, or 90% of them, is on a contract that guarantees them $250 million a year.
Well, it used to matter for the NFL Pro Bowl game, where NFL Pro Bowlers realized in the fourth quarter of that game that winning and losing was the difference between breaking even or losing money with their families all in Hawaii for the week. That actually did happen. I've seen Pro Bowls get competitive in the fourth quarter, but then obviously the NFL had a major Pro Bowl problem on their hands. And if I'm not mistaken, I came on the air, Mike Hoskins, our coordinating producer, was telling me this year's Pro Bowl games, as they refer to it, features like a game show, like newlywed type setup with how well do you know your teammate. So everybody's in that same All-Star game mosh pit. Before I let you go, what's the scoop with Jimmy Butler, man? Why is he on the block? Why are people talking about it? He's as good as ever. So what's going on with him?
Well, he's on the block because he's effectively in the last year of his contract. The expectation is he'll opt out and try to get a long-term deal somewhere else. And even though Miami's having a good season, they're not a title contender. And long-term, Jimmy Butler doesn't fit their timeline. The core of that team, including Bam Adebayo, they're all age 27 and younger. So you're looking to get guys that fit into that demo. Look, if the Heat wanted to re-sign Jimmy Butler, they could do it right now. They could give him a 2-year deal, about $113 million. They obviously don't want to do that. Now, nobody really knows how motivated Miami is to make a deal like this, because somewhere in the recesses of Pat Riley's mind and Eric Spoelstra's mind, they believe, you know what? We get to the playoffs, we can beat anybody. 2022, we went to the finals with an 8 seed. We can still get there. But the reality is they're in a situation where they could gin up kind of a bidding war for Jimmy Butler, and they could come away with a top-level young player, multiple draft picks, or both. So I think over the next couple of months, we're going to find out just what kind of appetite the Heat have for dealing him. If they do, you're looking at Golden State, you're looking at Denver, and you're probably looking at Houston, which could use someone with Jimmy Butler's closing the game type of talents, making a run at Jimmy Butler.
Okay. Read the next, because now we're post-Cup. Post-Cup. Read the Lakers' tea leaves between now and the trade deadline. So that's the next, 6 to 8 weeks that I'm laying out here for you now?
They're on the lookout for a center to fill out that rotation, because right now it's whenever I see Christian Coloco getting minutes, it's like, oh, that's not good. That's not who you want playing alongside or instead of Anthony Davis. LeBron's made it clear he likes Jonas Valanciunas. The Wizards are going nowhere. Jonas Valanciunas on a movable contract. I could see them making a run at him. Robert Williams up in Portland, if they can
Time Lord,
if they can duct tape him together to stay healthy for a month or 2 months in a row. Wow. He's on another movable contract as well. Those are the two guys that I think are piquing the Lakers' interest right now, because they play a position that the Lakers, they've got holes in a lot of places, but that front court alongside Anthony Davis, when Davis is out, they need some kind of veteran presence, and those two guys I think are the most available.
Okay, and so then the story of the NBA post-Cup is what? Outside of all the other stuff that we had. What do you think for me on this front over the next 2 months when we're leading up to that trade deadline?
I don't know. I don't expect a busy trade deadline.
You don't?
Because it's really hard to make deals in this new NBA that Adam Silver has created.
With the aprons and all that?
Aprons and hard caps and frozen draft picks. There's just a lot of hoops you have to jump through to make a deal, especially now, because the new TV money kicks in next year, and that's going to expand the cap. But right now, the cap is still what it's been largely, and that's really tough to fit a Zach LaVine salary onto somebody's books or a Brandon Ingram salary onto somebody's books. So I would expect there to be deals for guys like Cam Johnson in Brooklyn. I mean, Brooklyn right now is probably going to start jettisoning anybody that might help them win. Like they want to be really bad. Same thing probably can be said for Portland. Same thing certainly can be said for Washington. So you look at those rosters and look at those guys that are making $12, $13, $14 million, very movable deals in today's league. The Valanciunas, the Williams, guys like that. Those guys I think will be on the move before February. But even a guy like Jimmy Butler, very hard to deal unless you're sending back a big salary in return.
TJ already has visions of Cooper Flag in Philadelphia. That's what he's thinking about.
Yeah,
right
Chris,
now.
because I give me some reason to keep watching the season as a Sixers fan, and then tell me how good you think Flag will look in Philly, because that's all I got going right now.
I mean,
this guy.
Rubbernecking a car crash is fun sometimes, right?
I mean, that is true. That's true. In this case, no.
Spoken like an East Coaster right there.
Look, I actually saw Cooper Flag play against Kansas. I went to the game they played.
That's a pretty good game
there. I think Cooper Flag is really, really good. I don't know yet if he is that kind of transcendent talent we've seen in some previous. Like, he's not Victor Wembanyama. Like, nobody is, but he's not that. He is a really solid 6'9", super athletic, really good defender, really good playmaker, kind of a busted shot, caliber type of player. He's still, to me, number one overall. I think teams will be tripping over themselves to get into that position. I don't know. Is he a franchise-changing guy yet? I think the jury's still out on that.
What do you think of that one, TJ?
I mean, I'm okay with that. We have some parts there, right, Chris? So just that. We're not getting him anyway. This season's a loss. What am I even thinking?
I would be shocked if the 76ers, who have a top executive and a head coach with a lot of pressure on them, I would be shocked if they pulled the parachute and said, you know what, Joel, you can sit the rest of the season out. Paul George, take it easy. Let's let Tyrese Maxey make an all-NBA team, and let's rebuild next year. The window for that team to succeed is 2 years before George gets too old. Embiid already dealing with a litany of injuries. I mean, that's a fascinating team to watch the rest of the year.
You want to talk about having to duct tape somebody?
All right.
Joel needs that, man. We got the league's best TikToker, though, so there's that.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I let you go, last one, you mentioned rubbernecking and it being an entertaining rubberneck. Which would you rather rubberneck, an actual accident on the Mass Pike or Logan Paul versus Conor McGregor?
First of all, I'm impressed with the Mass Pike reference. I'll be
You're welcome.
Cruising down the pike
That's what I
this
figured.
time tomorrow.
Indeed. What do you think? Which would you rather? Which would you rather rubberneck?
I don't like rubbernecking a car crash. You're just kind of magnetically drawn to it.
No one's hurt. No one's hurt in the car crash.
No one's hurt.
It's one of those things. There's a lot of sirens and there's a lot of people standing around. Stalled cars. Maybe one's folded up like an accordion.
No.
Or Logan Paul versus Conor McGregor.
I would still pick I know where you're going with this. Like, I'd still pick the Logan. Conor to rubberneck that. Like, what is the latest with that? Is what they're going to fight in some guy's backyard in India? Like, is that there's some billionaire that wants to?
You're a boxing guy.
But
This is
not boxing. This is not boxing. Look, more power to Conor and to Logan if they can get like $30 million checks to fight at somebody's Sweet 16 party or whatever it is that they'd be doing. I didn't see the arrow.
Sweet
Come on
16.
by. There's a pinata, and his name is.
I don't understand. Like, if somebody's got that kind of cash and wants to lay it out there to watch Conor McGregor and Logan Paul
Sweet 16.
16-ounce gloves on, more power to him, but I don't know.
Talk about a nightmare. My daughter having a Sweet 16 and Conor McGregor being there. That would be.
Well, real boxing, Chris, you think there's a chance we might get Berlanga and Rosado?
No. There was a fake tweet out there about that.
That's odd.
Edgar Berlanga is going to fight somebody that is very, 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 very low caliber. This is the Edgar Berlanga comeback show, probably in Puerto Rico in early March, but I have been told pretty explicitly that it's not going to be Gabe Rosado.
Okay. Thanks for coming in, brother.
My pleasure.
As always, for letting us know you're in town and you always got a spot here. That's Chris Mannix. Check him out on all forms of social media, podcasts, and so much more right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.